be unable to compete. So therefore he is stripped of his title the day of, and he's not even in the match. What the fuck?
Vince wanted to get Randy Orton over and felt that this was the way to do it, and taking the belt off of Punk without having him lose it in the ring and be able to come back after the fact with Punk and Orton after the fact that Randy was the one that took him out.
Doesn't this feel like a really bad decision in hindsight?
Again, when you're there and you're making it and you're doing it, it is what it is, and you're trying to get through, and you make the best decision that you can at the time. Hindsight's always 20/20, and you can look back and pick holes in anything, but until you're there and you're actually doing it with a roster sitting in front of you and trying to figure out, okay, what can we do? We don't want to hurt this guy. We want to go here. What's one way to do it? It's a different way to do it.
So let's talk about what Punk says happened that day. He says he wasn't told he wasn't on the show until the day of, so he had been planning to be a part of the match until he gets to the building. And then when he's told that they're taking him out of the match and taking the belt off of him, the reason he's given is that Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho need the world title for their feud. So Jericho ends up becoming the champion. Do you remember that, or is that just a cop-out?
I don't remember that. And I'd love to know who told him that, but that may have been what somebody told him.
So that may have,
game. You know, there's a lot of times that either the agent or writer or somebody will get with talent. They're going to give them what
they need to hear,
what they think, or what they need to hear, or whatever.
It's not like he can go to him and say, well, you know, hey, listen, we appreciate what you're doing, but we want to get Randy over, so we're going to have him kick your head off backstage.
Right. So
instead, they lie to him and say, oh, we really just think this feud needs the belt.
Yeah, if somebody did tell him that. It's much easier if you go to him and say, hey, here's what we need to do. We're looking to get Randy over. We're looking to do something with you guys on down the line. Here's a way to do it.
Let me conspiracy theories this for a minute. Shawn Michaels, according to the rumor and innuendo, once upon a time, not a big fan of CM Punk, didn't get it. And now his feud needs the world title, so we just take it off of him. Once upon a time, a different Shawn Michaels, years before, people would say, oh, Shawn campaigned to get the belt off of him because he wanted it for his own. Shawn's difficult to work with, blah, blah, blah. Any chance that happens in 2008 here?
I don't know. I can tell you what the decision was and how we came up with it. And if somebody else came up with conspiracy, you can come up with conspiracy theories for everything, from the World Trade Center all the way down to CM Punk losing the title. I think that conspiracy theories are just that, theories that people sit in their computers and make up as time goes by to try and rationalize things.
So to the best of your understanding, Shawn did not ask for the belt here?
Not to my understanding, no.
Punk says that even though he had the title, he felt like he was quasi-invisible, and he shouldn't have been because he was the champion. And Triple H said something like, well, you're going to become WWE champion, but really, not really, kinda. We're going to give this to you, but we're not really going to let you be the guy. You're not going to be the featured guy, and you're not going to be on the opening segment or the last segment. You're just going to be the guy that has the title in the middle of the card somewhere. We're not really changing your position. We're just giving you this to hold for a little bit, and then we're taking it away. Do you feel like this?
First of all, Hunter wasn't in the office at that time. He wasn't in creative. He was strictly a talent. And for him to say something like that, if he did, I don't know where that comes from. And again, he wasn't.
Well, no, I don't think he's saying. I think he's saying that in hindsight, because that's what happened, is it not?
No, I know Punk was frustrated, and I know that Punk did feel that way. That's 100% how Punk felt, and that was an opportunity, you know, again, for us looking at, okay, let's put the championship on it, see if it elevates it. But I also think that there was other things going on at the time with other people, and maybe, you know, looking at, goddamn, does he need the belt? Can we do something else with it? There's a lot of other factors other than, hey, let's go fuck somebody.
Do you think booking the champion like that demoralizes the guy or discredits the belt? It feels like you guys did this a little bit with Rey Mysterio in '06, where he's the champion, but he's not really the guy. Doesn't this kind of set him up for failure just right out of the gate, as opposed to just kind of running with him?
Well, again, it depends on the guy. It depends on the situation going on at the time. I mean, if that's the case, then right now Roman Reigns would be the champion, and it's just different things. You have attractions and you have other talent. You try and use the championship to elevate some guys. You try and use some guys to elevate the championship. But you may have other stronger attractions around them that are going to require that time and that devotion, and it all equals out in the end. But there's no, hey, let's put the title on this guy, but we don't want to do anything with him. That's silly.
September 15th, Jericho would defeat Punk in a steel cage on Raw to retain his World Heavyweight title. And a week later, Punk would beat Cody Rhodes. I don't know when we'll talk about him again. Do you have any good Cody Rhodes stories you could share with us?
Squirted right out of the end of my nut, the seed of the American Dream. Cody Riley Reynolds Jr. the third. Man, funniest story with Cody was he used to piss me off because he used to come in and he used to use the spray tan stuff and an aerosol spray and would spray it all over, and he had brown toenails, but he would spray it sitting down and get everything around him just covered in spray tan. It would drive me absolutely nuts because he would go in the TV locker room where we had to work and spray his shit out. But no, Cody's a great guy.
The next week, it feels like he's kind of moved down the card a little bit, Punk is, because he's teaming with Kofi Kingston, Evan Bourne, and Rey Mysterio against Kane, Cody Rhodes, Ted DiBiase, and Manu. October 3rd, he's tagging with Carlito and Primo to defeat Ted DiBiase, Cody Rhodes, and Manu. And then he's back on ECW the next week, this time with Miz, Morrison, Cody Rhodes, and DiBiase taking on Punk, Kingston, Evan Bourne, and Ricky Ortiz. So it feels like Punk is just kind of lost in the shuffle. But then, a week later, he defeats the World Heavyweight Champion Chris Jericho with a little bit of help from guest referee Batista. So he goes from kind of middle of the card to a world title shot, but it's really just to advance the storyline for Batista. And then eventually, a couple of weeks after that, we would see Punk team with Kofi Kingston to defeat Ted DiBiase Jr. and Cody Rhodes to become the World Tag Team Champions. I know a lot of people who've kind of followed Punk's career know that he considers himself to be really good friends with Kofi Kingston, and they enjoyed their time together. They would travel together, play games together. Obviously, they enjoyed teaming together. What was it about Punk and Kofi that clicked?
They were just good friends, and I believe it was actually Punk's idea, the wanting to team with Kofi. We didn't necessarily have anything with Kofi at the time. They did gel together well, so let's make them a team and try something with them.
Let's wrap it up. November 3rd, Punk would defeat Randy Orton by DQ when Ted DiBiase would interfere. On the 17th of November, Orton would defeat Punk in a lumberjack match. And then at Survivor Series 08, Team Orton of Orton, Benjamin, Regal, Rhodes, and Henry would take on Team Batista of Batista, Punk, Kingston, Matt Hardy, and R-Truth. Punk would eliminate Regal, but would be eliminated by Cody, and the winners wind up being Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. So that's kind of the end of what we can cover for your time in the WWE with CM Punk. And obviously, though your WWE career ended, Punk's did not. And he went on to accomplish a lot more and have a lot of big moments for himself and the company in a really long world title reign. And then it didn't end exactly the way a lot of people imagined that a career like his should. So let's kind of touch on first, is there anything else that we can kind of put a bow on for your time with CM Punk in the WWE?
Not during my time there, but I didn't watch WWE when I left in December of 08. I didn't watch it for about a year. And when I did tune back in, it was about the time that Punk had started the Straight Edge Society thing. And I remember being so intrigued, and I'd cut off all communication with anybody having to do anything with wrestling pretty much. and I reached out to him. And to me, that was the best work that Punk had ever done, was the Straight Edge Society stuff when he had Luke Gallows and Serena with him. I just thought it was some of the best shit ever.
Well, a lot of people agreed, and we actually asked people on Twitter to participate and ask questions. So we're going to rapid fire some of your questions from Twitter. If you'd like to be involved in the show, you can actually vote and shape the show on Twitter at Pritchard Joe, but you can also ask us questions as well. So let's kind of go ahead and rapid fire some questions here. Sean Fox on Twitter wants to know, any heat backstage for having a bigger pop than Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and the Hardys at the 06 Survivor Series?
Not that I know of.
Ron wants to know, in your opinion, do you think CM Punk hated the stardom that came from being a WWE superstar?
No, I think he dug it. I think that's what he was looking for.
Rusty Townsend wants to know, in your opinion, was Punk amongst the best in the world from day one?
Not from day one, but I think he grew to be one of the best.
Rusty Townsend on Twitter wants to know, not sure if this is in range or not, but how much of the pipe bomb promo do you think was worked? Now, of course, that happened on June 27th, 2011. But we get lots of questions about this, and it kind of tickles me that people aren't sure. So stay clearly for the record. How much of that was a work?
100%.
Justin Hanna wants to know, do you think Punk should be in the WWE Hall of Fame for all the pipe he's laid in the Divas locker room?
Next.
Oh, they're going to bronze his dick. I mean, that's what we need to know. Really and truly. Is it going to be next to the Andre statue in the lobby, you think?
Next.
Can Bruce do an imitation of Triple H complaining about CM Punk and calling him a skinny fat ass while doing so?
What the fuck's the skinny fat ass doing in there?
Rodney on Twitter wants to know, what was the most difficult part of working with CM Punk?
I didn't have difficulty working with CM Punk because he was straightforward, and I think that Punk didn't mince words. I like that, but a lot of people didn't. A lot of people felt that he was too cocky and arrogant.
Robert Green on Twitter wants to know, when you first met CM Punk, did you envision him as a main event star?
No.
Rodney on Twitter wants to know, do you think Vince ever saw Punk's full potential? If not, what do you think he didn't see?
I do. In the end, I think that Vince definitely saw his full potential and got a lot out of it.
Nick wants to know, did Bruce like Punk? He seems like a straight shooting guy who just wanted to wrestle and recognized for good work in the ring.
I like Punk very much, yes.
Black Man USA wants to know, why does Bruce think Punk had so many fans? He sounds like he could be a hard person to deal with.
I think because there were people that could relate to his genuine, everything that Punk said was true. For the most part. I mean, he spoke the truth, and I think that when you do that, people feel you as genuine.
Aaron on Twitter wants to know, why did Michael Hayes always seem to be so against CM Punk?
I don't know that Michael was against CM Punk. I think that Michael just didn't see a whole lot in Punk at first, and again, as time wore on and Punk earned his stripes, I think everybody kind of warmed up to him.
Dick Byrne wants to know, when Dream Feuds are speculated, Punk Austin is always mentioned. Was it ever suggested by creative or Punk himself, to the best of your knowledge?
You know, I believe it was suggested by Steve, kind of in a, if I could work again, he would like to work with him, but it wasn't something that would be reality, so.
Chrissy wants to know, do you think Punk will ever return to the WWE?
Yes, I do.
What was the reason for Punk not having original WWE-produced entrance music, and how expensive was it to use Kill Switch?
I believe that was something that was done specifically for him that we owned. So it was original.
Jay wants to know, what was Vince's first impression of Punk? How would it sound coming from Vince?
Yeah. I'd say that was his first impression.
Josh wants to know, was it Punk's decision to cut his hair, or did the office make it mandatory? I'd have to know if you could. Brock wants to know, did politics in the office or with the boys hurt Punk? Could he have handled himself better with the office or the boys?
think that for the most part, while I was there, the Punk handled himself the same way consistently. So I can't speak to what happened after I left. I have no idea. But while I was there, he pretty much treated everybody the same, and there was no difference.
How do you think Punk would have done in the Attitude Era?
I think that Punk would have probably excelled in the Attitude Era. I don't know that Punk would have done well in the 80s.
Why do you think that Punk wouldn't have done well in the 80s?
Just because there was a completely different attitude. I don't want to say it wasn't taken as seriously, because it was, but there wasn't the emphasis on your in-ring product, and the emphasis was more on the marketing and almost cartoon aspect of the business.
Andy wants to know, was there ever any discussion of covering up the Pepsi logo?
No.
Joe wants to know, were there ever any other names kicked around for CM Punk?
That's funny. No, there really weren't, and that's why I go back to it's funny, people that Vince allows to use their name and those that he doesn't.
Danny on Twitter says, Punk seems like a guy who complains a lot. Did he often complain to you about finishes, spots on cards, etc.?
No, he didn't complain. He was one of those guys that always had suggestions for things. So versus somebody that would just kind of bitch and moan, and I don't want to do this, but not have anything, he was the kind of guy that would usually come to you with an idea first and then build off your idea. Does Arn have a Twitter?
No. Did HBK actually say in a booking meeting, this has been credited over the years, I'm glad we got this question from Joe on Twitter, instead of making fun of it, fix it? Apparently there's rumor and innuendo that sitting around one day, they're all kind of taking shots at what he does well. I mean, not what he doesn't do well. He doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, he doesn't do this, he's supposed to be great, but he doesn't know that. And Sean allegedly says something like, instead of making fun of him, fix it.
Probably. I don't remember that quote specifically, but it sounds like something Sean would say. Because I know Sean had that attitude with Rob Conway and Lance Cade, and Trevor Murdoch, just to name a few. That would kind of get frustrating sometimes, because everybody could pick apart somebody instead of throwing out ideas, like I said, to make it better. So it sounds like something to say.
John on Twitter wants to know, why does WWE management seem to fight when guys get over organically as opposed to management pushes? I'm sure he's referencing when Zack Ryder got over really big on his own a few years ago, the Daniel Bryan situation from maybe 5 years ago, and of course CM Punk. They were all kind of over without the machine, so to speak. And his opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, is that the WWE doesn't necessarily like that.
Well, it's not that they don't like it. It's just when they have their creative and they're going in a certain direction, and all of a sudden the audience is taking you somewhere else, there's going to be hesitation to that at first. And you've got to change what you've already had laid out. So it's not, oh God, I don't want the audience, I don't want this guy to get over. It's, shit, how do we get there with what we already have written, what we've already got laid out?
Mo wants to know, any road stories with Punk? Since he didn't drink, did he go out with the boys?
Yeah, he did go out with the boys. He just didn't drink. It just was, he would go out and eat, he would hang out with people, but he wasn't a partier.
Winter on Twitter wants to know, do you think all the anger and frustration that Punk has is justified?
I'm sure he can justify it. I think there's probably, something to it. So, again, that depends on how you want to funnel all that stuff. And he probably feels it's justified.
Do you think that Punk will have an opportunity to go into the Hall of Fame?
Yes, I do.
All right, so we got one last thing we're going to have you do, but we want to go ahead and tell you the poll is already in for this week. So Bruce is going to be traveling next week, so we had to go ahead and tape the show early. So next week, look forward to In Your House Canadian Stampede. That's your homework, kids. Go to the WWE Network. Check out the July 1997 pay-per-view. It's right after the King of the Ring in June, right before SummerSlam in 97. It's July 1997 from the Saddle Dome. In Your House Canadian Stampede, one of the wildest, most raucous crowds in the history of wrestling, and we're going to cover it long form next week right here on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. And don't forget, next weekend, man, we are going to be in Dallas at 3 Links. We're going to be talking 1989 WWF, Tony Schiavone's year in the WWF. Of course, we're going to touch on SummerSlam 89 and what would we be doing if we didn't talk about some Monday Night Wars. There's only one place to get your tickets. It's WHWLive.com. Bruce Pritchard, Tony Schiavone, and myself, long form. Don't miss it. But now our main event. I can't believe we're really doing this. Bruce, what would it sound like if Johnny Ace were to sing Cult of Personality, CM Punk's famous theme song? Of course, he had 2. The first with Killswitch Engage, which is really what we should probably be doing right now. But the one everybody most closely associates with CM Punk is Cult of Personality by Living Colour. What might that sound like if Johnny Ace did that song, Bruce?
Look at my eyes. What do you see? The Cult of Personality. I know your anger. I know your dreams. I'm in everything you want to be. I'm the Cult of Personality. Like Mussolini and Kennedy. I'm the Cult of Personality. The Cult of Personality. The Cult of Personality. Neon lights. A noble prize. Then a mirror speaks. The reflection lies. You don't have to follow me. Only you can set me free. I sell the things you need to be. I'm the smiley face on your TV. I'm the Cult of Personality. I exploit you. Still you love me. I tell you 1 and 1 makes 3. I'm the Cult of Personality. Like Joseph Stalin and Gandhi. I'm the Cult of Personality. The Cult of Personality. The Cult of Personality. Neon lights. A noble prize. A leader speaks. A leader dies. You don't have to follow me. Only you can set you free. I think.
I really felt like when you said only you were going to break out, can prevent forest fires. I was ready for it. All right, that's it, kids. Thanks for tuning in. Check us out already if you haven't at savewithbruce.com. We can save you a whole hell of a lot of money on your next mortgage. Let you skip a couple of house payments, get into a brand new house with no money down, and most importantly, pay your house off faster. Savewithbruce.com can hook you up. NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender, and of course, pick up a shirt right now at brucepritchard.com. But maybe most importantly, Dallas, July 9th, Philadelphia, July 23rd. Let's make it happen, man. WHW Live and LiveNation.com. We'll see you back here next week. Follow us in the meantime at Pritchard Show, at Bruce Pritchard, and at Hey It's Conrad. We'll see you next week right here on Something to Wrestle With. Hey, and before we get out of here, we should mention that today's episode was brought to you by Carvana. If you're looking to unsuck the experience of going to the dealership, Carvana can help. With Carvana, you can browse, buy, trade in, even finance your next vehicle online, all from the comfort of your very own home. Choose as soon as next day delivery or pick up your vehicle from the world's very first coin-operated car vending machine. That's right, a car vending machine. So go ahead, wave bye-bye to buyer's remorse with their 7-day money-back guarantee. Get all this information and more at Carvana.com/wrestle. That's Carvana.com/wrestle for the new way to buy a car. That's Carvana.com/wrestle. Bruce Pritchard.
That wasn't anything to write home about. And instead of going kind of where we wanted to go with Undertaker at that point, it was like, not yet. That's what you get stuck with.
Around the same time, we see the fun segment, or at least I enjoyed it. I want to ask what you thought of some other ones, but I really dug when Kendrick comes out and does a battle rap. I think at the time he called himself, and of course on the indies he was Spanky. He's Brian Kendrick here, but he comes out and he calls himself Spanky, and he's rapping in this big oversized I don't know, outfit that Cena would wear. It's like a velour jumpsuit of sorts with this big bucket hat. And Baby Hebner does the beatbox for him. And Cena just says, "Hey, white boy, give me a beat." And Baby Hebner shows off some pretty impressive beatboxing skills. What'd you think of this segment in particular, and the way they were able to kind of tell a story in the few minutes they had?
I thought it was absolutely fabulous because it was something, again, it was a skill that Brian Hebner had, that he would do to entertain the boys in the back. And we found out, hey, wait a minute, damn Spanky can go too. So it was something from real life that had taken place in the back that entertained the hell out of the boys. And if you can entertain the boys, chances are you're going to be able to entertain the masses with it. So it was something, I think Cena is the one that brought it to our attention. Oh my God, you got to hear Brian Hebner. And then you got to hear Spanky. And then it was like, put that shit on TV.
You probably enjoyed the one with Funaki though, right? When he spelled out UGLY, you ain't got no alibi.
Of course.
Funaki has introduced something into your life that you shared with me. Do you want to tell everybody about the miracle?
Which miracle? The eye drops?
Yeah, oh my gosh. Smarten everybody up on these Japanese eye drops that you carry around everywhere you go.
The single greatest eye drops, it's like Altoids for the eyes, folk, and you can only get them in Japan. And my good friend Sho Funaki, every time that he would go to Japan, would come back with a case of these things. And the best way to describe it is once you place them in your eyes, it's like about 1,000 ice cubes and 4 little tiny people about the size of ants massaging your eyeballs, and they are absolutely incredible.
Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners who may not have put it together about you and Funaki?
Indeed.
I don't think a lot of people know that you were the guy who did that. I just thought that was fun to share. So if you didn't know, now you know. June 5th, 2003, we would see John Cena defeat Chris Benoit after Rhino accidentally hit Benoit with a chain. And to celebrate his 1 year in the WWE, on June 26, 2003, John Cena would issue an open challenge, and Orlando Jones would accept. And John, of course, gets the victory. This is kind of one of the more interesting debut years for a wrestler in that he debuts against Kurt Angle. He worked stuff with Chris Jericho. He has an opportunity to work a program with Brock Lesnar. He won a title tournament that included Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero and The Undertaker. What a year. Am I right?
I thought he had a great year. You know, we're talking about it 16 years later, so hey, I thought he had a great year.
Let's keep going here. On July 3rd, Billy Gunn would beat John Cena. This was for the United States title tournament. The Undertaker offered the assist here. And then on July 27th in 03 at Vengeance, we would see The Undertaker defeat John Cena with the last ride powerbomb. At this point, was there ever any consideration to having John Cena go over to kind of solidify him as a main event player? Or was that just too soon?
I think it was too soon, and leading up to it, some of those vignettes that we did with Cena pissing on Undertaker's bike in the graveyard. Here's a sidebar story for you. We do the vignettes with Cena in the graveyard, and I get a call the day after that we shot the vignette. We shoot the vignettes, 1 o'clock in the morning and so on and so forth, and I get a call the next day that the funeral or the grave site, the cemetery that we used, was beside themselves that the guy let us use that cemetery because, and you'll never use my cemetery again, and you disrespected it, and so on and so forth. After we hang up with him, somebody walks into us with a newspaper, and this cemetery that we had used going all the way back to 1990 was stacking bodies, which is highly illegal. And the fact that they always were so damn accommodating, digging holes for us and moving things around for us and all this other crap. These guys have been stacking bodies for over 100 years. And so you would go, and after so many years, they would just take the headstone down, resell the plot, and then dig the holes deeper and just stack bodies on top of each other. They're in Stamford, Connecticut, so that was our last cemetery shoot in Stamford.
It's hard to find a good funeral director these days. It's a shame Paul Bear's not with us anymore.
This is true.
What would Paul Bear say about stacking bodies like that?
Oh, yes, it's the bottom line. Oh, yes.
August 28th, 2003, SmackDown in El Paso would show Eddie Guerrero defeat John Cena by DQ to retain the U.S. title. At this point, Eddie Guerrero is over like Rover, and in El Paso, he's the big deal. Any memories of this match in particular?
Oh, holy shit! This was one when Eddie was U.S. champion, and again when Eddie was the WWF champion. Where Eddie's return to El Paso, we turned away thousands and thousands of people. And I remember driving around for this particular one in a convertible lowrider outside the arena so that everybody that couldn't get in could at least get to see Eddie Guerrero. And it was just magical because that was Eddie's hometown, and the Guerrero family in El Paso and in Juarez, Mexico. They walked on water, so this was an incredible night for Eddie Guerrero. And it was an incredible night for Cena to have that much heat going into that match.
In a big match on September 11th, 2003, we would see on SmackDown Eddie Guerrero beat John Cena in the Latino street fight. Chavo would interfere. September 25th, we would see John Cena attack Kurt Angle, who would then bolt in a getaway car, and Kurt Angle would come after him. This would culminate on October 2nd, when we would see John Cena and Brock Lesnar team against Kurt Angle and The Undertaker, but Cena would knock Angle out with a chain, and the only way to settle that is 1 week later, on October 9th, 2003, Kurt Angle and John Cena battle rap. What'd you think of Kurt Angle's battle rap with John Cena?
Okay, here's what I found funny about it, was that the battle raps were written by the whitest white boys that you could ever imagine. Cena, of course, wrote his own stuff, and Kurt's was written, I believe, by Brian Gewirtz, with the help of John Cena in there as well. But Kurt, his comedic timing off the charts, and they had such good chemistry and great timing with one another that it's one of those moments that if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it, because it shows both Kurt Angle and John Cena at their best.
If you haven't already, go check Kurt Angle out in our archives. One of our more underrated episodes. Lots of good stuff in there. Check it out at mlwradio.com. October 16th, 2003, Kurt Angle and John Cena get into a verbal confrontation, and this includes a little person dressed as Kurt Angle. Any memories of this? I'm always fascinated whenever the WWE dusts off a little person for these type of roles. It feels like somebody somewhere has a little person fetish, because they do this a lot.
Short sleeve. Samson. I say short sleeve. You say Samson. Short sleeve.
Samson.
Short sleeve.
Samson.
Short. That was Short Sleeve Samson that portrayed Kurt Angle, and I'll never forget talking to my brother Tom, who was helping book enhancement talent, different guys around the country, when we needed a hairless little person.
A hairless little person?
Well, yeah, because Kurt was bald. So you needed a hairless little person.
Oh, I thought you meant like a swimmer. Never mind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. And he says, well, do they have to rap? Because I got, not only that, I've got a hairless little person that raps. I say short sleeve, you say Samson, short sleeve.
Samson! Is that like the modern day version of Marco?
Pharaoh.
Feels like it is. No Mercy, Kurt Angle, John Cena. This happens October 19th, 2003. We're going to break it down in long form at some point. Ultimately, Kurt Angle gets the win with an ankle lock into a heel hook. What did you think of this match?
I thought it was great. I thought that it was one of those that you see the growth in John Cena. You get to see that, holy shit, we got something here.
Let's talk about what's next. We've got October 23rd, and this one would happen on SmackDown. John Cena and A-Train taking on Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle. It ended in a no contest, so they do it again the following week, except they kind of reshuffle a little bit with Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit taking on John Cena and A-Train. And this is where you see Cena and Train had kind of turned on each other. November 6, 2003, on SmackDown, we get John Cena defeating Rey Mysterio after a low blow and then an FU. And after the match, Paul Heyman would offer John Cena a spot on Team Lesnar at the Survivor Series. And then Cena got attacked by A-Train, which I guess turned Cena back babyface. What the hell's going on here?
Well, at this time, the crowd was getting behind Cena because he was so damn entertaining with his raps. And no different than The Rock previously, where no matter what Rock did trying to be a heel, that the crowd was entertained by him and they were cheering him. They were cheering John Cena and they were cheering his raps. So the decision was made, okay, they're going to cheer him. Let's just flip the script here a little bit and change the tune of his raps and who he's rapping on. Make him a babyface.
November 13th, we would have Chris Benoit and Cena take on and win Lesnar and the Big Show. So that's a big deal when you have Big Show and Lesnar on the same side, but they go down, and it happens at the hands of Benoit and Cena. Next up, of course, is Survivor Series a few days later, November 16th. We'll cover that in long form sometime, I'm sure. This one's in Dallas, and Cena is on Team Angle, which consists of himself, Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Hardcore Holly, and Bradshaw, and they take on Team Lesnar, made out of Brock, Big Show, Matt Morgan, A-Train, and Nathan Jones. Is that the most meat on one side of a team ever before?
Would you want to meet any one of those 10 guys in an alley anywhere? That for a shoot is a badass team on both sides.
Cena, Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Hardcore Holly, and Bradshaw. Other side, Lesnar, Big Show, Matt Morgan, A-Train, and Nathan Jones. That's ridiculous, the roster at this time. Cena would hit Big Show with an FU to pin him, and then Cena and Angle are the eventual winners and sole survivors of the match. This is all really starting to kind of elevate Cena at this time. Is most of this due, in your opinion, to the crowd really digging the rap gimmick where he would kind of run the opponents down on the way to the ring? It feels like that most of all is what's responsible for the push here. Do you agree?
Absolutely, and Cena's in-ring work was getting a little better. He wasn't as clumsy. He was still clumsy, still had 2 left feet, but his work was getting better. And then you started to see the power. And this son of a bitch is what guys in the gym call cockstrong. Cena is one strong son of a bitch. And to get Big Show up and do the FU on him, that's an impressive feat of strength. I don't give a shit who you are.
Vince McMahon on the DVD put over that John Cena actually squats barefoot, and that was like Cro-Magnon, and it wouldn't be a big deal to a lot of people, but it was a big deal to Vince. When did Vince first start to become impressed with Cena? I asked because they did a segment on the November 20th, 2003 SmackDown, and it feels like Vince is pretty selective with who he programs himself with.
I think that just, first of all, being able to see Cena in the gym and see that strength, and like I just said with Big Show, being able to manhandle another man that's 500 pounds, damn near 7 feet tall, that's impressive as shit. And Cena was able to get Rikishi up, he was able to get Big Show up, and he's just an impressively strong bastard. He's scary strong. Strong like bull.
July 18th, 1970.
Well, this November 20th, 2003 is kind of seen as like coming out party, I guess, because he's got this segment with Vince McMahon, and then in the main event, he defeats Big Show. A week later, he would defeat A-Train to qualify for the #1 contenders battle royal later that night, and Cena and Benoit would end up as co-winners of the battle royal and face off the following week. It seems like you guys have done this co-winners thing a few times. Whose finish is that, and why is that one of their favorites?
I'm going to lean on, the original finish that I can remember, talking about like co-winners, and this wasn't a battle royal, but it was the Hogan Orndorff both dropping down in the cage at the same time, and you had the disputed winners. But Vince liked the controversy. And Vince liked to have controversy around things where both sides have an argument. To me, and I think from a fan point of view, if you've got a battle royal or something like that, why not just start the damn thing over and get a winner? it seems easy, but it was just for storyline purposes, and Vince kind of liked to lean on that from time to time to get an organic match.
December 4th, we would see that match. Benoit would defeat John Cena after interference from the Big Show, and this would get Benoit a title shot. The next week, John Cena and the Big Show would do a battle rap, and then Cena would kick him low. Here we see the Big Show dressed up kind of like Cena and actually doing a rap, and there's some pretty controversial stuff that the WWE does not put this stuff on the network for a reason. I don't care what anybody says, because Cena has been positioned as, you know, what he is, an American hero, and doing all of these visits with charities and Make-A-Wish, and I mean, he's the face of the company. So they don't want him in position here to have a lot of this stuff out there. So the two of the DVDs that they've put out on him that kind of highlight some of that salty language is not on the network. But I mention this and make such a big deal about it because there's some sort of line in here with the Big Show where he says something like, "In my world, you're the white girl and I'm Kobe Bryant." And it got a huge response, and obviously you could never say that today, but you guys got pretty edgy with this stuff. How do you think John Cena and Big Show did here in their battle rap?
I thought it was excellent. I thought both were extremely entertaining, and these are the things where Big Show shines that a lot of people don't always get to see the personality side of the Big Show. He's one of the funniest guys I've ever been around. He's pretty damn quick-witted, and his delivery and comic timing is great. So I thought it helped both guys shine and made it work.
No, he did make it work, and he made it work on the first trip to Iraq. The WWF first went to Iraq that year, and it was going to be the tribute to the troops, and they had done some stuff like this before, but this is the first time to Iraq, and Cena wanted to go and jumped at the chance to go. And while he's there, he does a battle rap, of course, or he does his rap, but then he has a match with Big Show, and they're pushing him in a big way here. Do you remember talking to Cena about this tribute to the troops show or what it meant to him?
I know that there were a lot of guys, and John being one of them. Bradshaw is the one who actually originally hooked up the very first tribute to the troops and the guys going over to Iraq. And a lot of guys, as many guys that wanted to go over, there were a lot of guys that didn't want to go over, that were concerned about their safety and didn't necessarily want to make that trip. There's a great story about Ron Simmons when they took the guys into a zone where there was a lot of fighting and there was a lot of stuff going on in Iraq, and they're in a helicopter and they've got cover on the helicopter, and the Army guys come on the helicopter and say, "Okay, now look, when you get off the helicopter, keep your head down, stay low. We will be on the outside, and we're going to be shooting our guns off, but just be sure and stay low. We've got you covered." And Ron Simmons turns, looks at him and goes, "Dang, you know, I'd have sent any one of these motherfuckers an autograph picture. I'd be fine with that. You know, I personalize this shit and everything, but damn, fuck, I got to be shot at, go in and sign autograph picture." Nobody comes in and sees these guys out here on the battlefield like this. Yeah, because nobody wants to get shot at, motherfucker. But there were guys that didn't want to do it, and then there were guys that did want to do it. And Cena was definitely one of those guys that was very patriotic and wanted to go over and see the troops, and he truly loved this thing.
Well, let's talk about January 1st, 2004. It's New Year's Day. We've got SmackDown with Chris Benoit and John Cena defeating the FBI to gain entry into the Royal Rumble match. And then on the 15th, we would see Cena and Rhino in a wash your mouth out with soap match, which was set up by Chris Benoit. Talk me through this.
Oh, God. Just something different, something that hadn't been done before. So every kid, especially in my age bracket, was threatened with having their mouth washed out with soap at some point in their lives by their mother if you said a bad word. So why not do it on TV? You know, we've done Loser Eats a Can of Dog Food. We've done everything else under the sun. Why not a wash your mouth out with soap?
Chris Benoit would join in and put Paul Heyman in a sharpshooter, while John Cena would feed him chunks of ivory soap.
First time that soap touched that body in years.
Oh, I remember that. January 22nd.
Whatever you do, sir, do not allow any mouthwash in my mouth.
January 22nd, Chris Benoit and Cena would defeat Rhino, Matt Morgan, and Big Show, and Brock Lesnar. So now we're at the 04 Royal Rumble. This one goes down in Philadelphia. And we've got Cena coming in at number 28. For the second year in a row, he has no eliminations, but he does make it to the final 6 in the match, this time being eliminated by the Big Show. It seems kind of curious that Cena, given what he would become, had 2 back-to-back Royal Rumble appearances and didn't eliminate anybody. Was there some sort of strategy or plan to that?
No reason. It probably just didn't fit at the time, anybody in there, and just didn't fit for him to eliminate anybody. No specific reason, per se.
February 4th, we would see Paul Heyman bench John Cena after the FCC crackdown on profanity on network television. Any memory of this angle?
Yeah, we were getting a lot of heat from people being on broadcast, because at the time, being on UPN, it was taboo, to use colorful language, and we were getting a little bit of heat for some of the risque language that we were using. So, okay, we're gonna adhere. We're gonna bench him for a little while.
And it was specifically
learn a new hold.
It was specifically John Cena's raps that got you guys in trouble.
A lot of his raps did, yeah. I think that was one of the things that was easy for people to point to, because they were always a little risque.
Did you think that you guys were pushing the envelope, or did you think it was within norms?
I think we always pushed the envelope, but I don't think that we were any more risque than some of the other network programming that was on at the same time. I just really don't. I thought that it was walking the line, but I don't think we crossed it.
The next week, we've got Eddie Guerrero and John Cena defeating Brock Lesnar and Big Show when Eddie pinned Brock, and now we're set for No Way Out in 04, and this is where we would see Kurt Angle defeat Big Show and John Cena in a triple threat match to become the #1 contender for WrestleMania 20, and of course, we're going to have Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle square off at WrestleMania 20. Any consideration at that point in having John Cena win and become the #1 contender? Or was the thinking, he hasn't won a secondary title yet, he can't jump straight to the world title?
The thinking simply was that he wasn't ready for it at that time, and Vince did feel that Cena was the type of character that had to earn his stripes along the way, and wanted him to either be the United States champion or Intercontinental champion before he's competing for the WWF champion.
In your opinion, does he think that way based on the size of the competitor, or what is it about him that makes him say you have to earn it?
The overall just feeling of the guy. I think that with John, the way that he started out, and then the rap gimmick and everything else, I just think that overall there's different strokes for different folks. And for Cena, that's how he felt about John Cena. He felt that the people wanted Cena to earn it, and wanted him to earn it. There's some guys that you can just put out there and shock by getting the championship. Jinder Mahal is a great example of that. Hey, let's shock him. We did it with the great Khali as well, and some others. But for Cena, he saw Cena as a long-term investment and wanted him to earn his stripes.
February 19th, we got Kurt Angle and John Cena defeating the Basham brothers. I don't know when we'll talk about them again. Got any good Basham brother stories you could share with us?
Well, Doug Basham is Danny Davis's brother-in-law. One time, I think he was married to or engaged to Gail Kim. And Danny Basham was, "Damage you, motherfucker!" in OVW. He's the greatest rapper of all time. And that was actually his gimmick. Damaja was Danny Basham, that Cornette was in love with, and felt that he should have had the rapping gimmick.
In the March 4th Figure 4 Weekly, it was reported that John Cena did an interview on Between the Ropes Radio, and Alvarez would write that John Cena indicated that he had torn his ACL taking a bump at the Royal Rumble, but was happy because it could have actually been a lot worse. And he says that he was going to be limited as to what he could do in the ring. Obviously, that's not good for his WrestleMania payday. He says he was contemplating bringing back the Iron Claw as a finisher because he thought it was a throwback move that would go with his throwback jersey. What did you think about this idea of a throwback finisher? Was he just trolling these guys, or was there any sort of real talk that John Cena may bring back the Iron Claw?
No, I think he was just trolling these guys because, especially knowing how Vince feels about the claw as a finish being one of the hokiest moves in the wrestling business. He was not a fan, and this sounds like something that John may have just been having fun with.
And he also says in the interview that the real life John Cena wore the same stuff that the John Cena on TV wore. Now, these days he dresses a little different, but not much. Was that fairly accurate that back in 03-04, the Cena you saw on TV is the real life Cena?
100% accurate.
He even had, in a lot of his merchandise, the number 54 on his jerseys and his merch was his real football number 54, right?
Correct.
What do you remember about the scare for the torn ACL and how that would affect him at WrestleMania 19? Because, of course, he's at WrestleMania 19, and he did a really hokey rap situation where they had did like an open challenge to rappers anywhere. This is the one in Seattle, and no one takes him up on it. So he comes out in his WrestleMania jumpsuit and then has Jay-Z's head on an Austin Powers body cardboard cutout, and then Fabulous's head on a mini-me Austin Powers cardboard cutout. And he does his raps and kicks him off of there, and then he's out of there. It's kind of an underwhelming WrestleMania debut for one of the greatest superstars of all time, is it not?
Well, that wasn't the original idea. Was to actually have a battle rap, and I believe, oh my God, he's on the CSI show. Bald guy, rapper.
Ice Cube?
Not Ice Cube, but it was
Ice-T?
Hard pressed.
Not Ice-T.
Pitbull?
I can tell just from looking at you that you're no Peggy. If you were,
I gotta
you'd
look
have
it up.
different words.
This is gonna drive me
Glad
nuts.
you joined the right side. Call me Bo. I've been living
LL
on
Cool
this
J?
island for as long as I can
LL Cool
remember.
J
I've seen a lot over
was
the years.
supposed to be the
Crime,
one that we did the battle rap with, and it was supposed to be
Nothing
LL Cool
like
J
Eden's Gate.
and I believe
Hasn't changed
Snoop,
my ways, though.
and they were going to come
It's
out
another
and do
thing to
this, and it
survive
all
against.
fell apart as we got
Ain't nothing
closer
more
to it.
powerful than
Why did you guys think
nature,
they would really do that?
But you don't beat her.
LL Cool J wanted to work.
with her.
I mean, he wanted to have a
Now, at
match,
times like these,
and
smart
he and
relying
Shane
on
had talked back
man-made
and
junk to
forth,
save
and
your ass.
it
I
was
can see the
then
skepticism
just
in
conflict
your
of
eyes.
schedules. Couldn't make it happen.
Tell you what,
Yeah, what
Ever
happened
seen
is he didn't want to get out
big old
there
Leviathan
and
bones?
ruin any sort of
I'll
rap
prove it to you.
credibility he had by letting a professional wrestler out rap him.
Well, we wouldn't have let that happen.
Sure. Okay, so now we're ready for WrestleMania 20. This is where we're getting to. I just wanted to kind of compare and contrast WrestleMania 19 and WrestleMania 20. I guess my follow-up to 19 is, if you know the rap isn't going to happen, why not find something else for him to do if you really thought he had a shot to be something?
Well, because we kept trying all the way till the very last minute to get somebody there and do it as a surprise, and everybody just kept falling through. We had Snoop Dogg on the hook, and then he fell through, and it just, we kept hoping that somebody was going to show up and do it.
Well, here we are, WrestleMania 20. This one went down in Madison Square Garden. It took place on March 14th, 2004. And of course, as we remember, this is when John Cena finally earns gold. He defeats the Big Show to capture the United States Championship. Now, a year prior, at WrestleMania 19, he had vowed that he would be in the main event of WrestleMania. He's actually in the opener here, but he is beating the Big Show, and he is putting all 500 pounds on his shoulders and giving him his finish. And the crowd is into his rap to start the show. Cena appeared to be very excited about this. The crowd was clearly behind him. with lots of "Let's Go Cena" and "Big Show sucks" chants. Eventually, we see Cena go ahead and wrap a chain around his fist and tell the ref he's going to punch Show out. The ref says no, so John throws the chain on the mat. The ref goes to pick it up, and as he does, Cena puts on brass knuckles instead and punches Show in the head. He gets another FU, and it's over. The crowd goes crazy for this, and Cena is selling it like he's won a title that really means something. Alvarez would write, "Definitely better than I expected, 3 1/4 stars." Now, what'd you think of this match at WrestleMania 20 and the coronation of John Cena as a single star here?
I thought it was great, and I thought that the Big Show did a great job of making Cena fight for it and really making him feel like a champion. And it is actually a very good observation that Cena made that win and made that championship look like it was something special. It wasn't a secondary title. It was everything to him. So, opening up WrestleMania is an honor, and to be on the card in and of itself is an honor. But that first match is just as important as the last match. And for those guys we picked to open up the show and set it on the right note is why it was put in that position and kind of to anoint Cena going forward.
Well, this is when he wins the regular U.S. title, of course, but they soon debut the spinning title after he wins it. When did you guys have the idea for a spinning main plate on a championship belt?
I think it was a combination of John Cena and Vince trying to come up with something that would be unique to John Cena. And, you have the turntables that spin, wah, wah, wah. And if the U.S. title was a spinner belt, that's kind of how they came up with it. And the simple fact that John was a babyface, it was a unique belt, and they felt that the merchandising would be through the roof, and it was.
Did you really think that the spinner was based on a turntable?
It was.
It wasn't based on a spinning wheel on a car, a rim?
I always looked at it as a turntable.
I love you, white guy. No, it was based on spinning rims. At the time, they were really big. Latrell Sprewell was one of the first guys out there who had it, and the concept was you would have your main wheel. I love you for that. But then you have part on the outside that spins. Nobody uses them anymore, but they were really, really over at that time. What did you think of the spinning center plate? JR has been critical of it. A lot of old school guys were pretty critical of this not being a traditional style belt, especially when you think about the history that the United States belt had.
I hated it. I absolutely hated it. But at the end of the day, they sold a ton of them for merchandising. But I hated it. I did not like the design. I didn't like the spinning of it. And for all the reasons, I like the traditional championship being something that everybody was gunning for.
Let's talk about some of the elements that Cena used to create his character here. He called his fans the Chain Gang. Do you know if that's something he came up with or something that somebody creative would have come up with? This stems from him wearing a chain around his neck. At the time, rappers were wearing lots of gold and bling chains. I guess rappers still do. But that's when the craze was kind of kicking into high gear. But a generation before, the Junkyard Dog came to the ring with a chain around his neck, and Hercules Hernandez in the WWF carried a chain to the ring. Whose idea was using the chain and calling his fans the Chain Gang?
I think it was just something that organically happened from his raps and something that he wrote and kind of caught on.
Was this a strategic idea when he's wearing all of the throwback jerseys to then instead put him in the throwback logo with the F chopped off? Is that something that someone from merchandising comes up with? Or is that John Cena's own throwback idea?
Well, it was Cena's idea to do the throwback logo so that he could sell merchandise, because he wasn't making any money off of doing the throwback jerseys of all the teams and stuff.
Right.
So his idea was, let's do a throwback with the logo, but he wanted to get the royalties from it. It was his idea and it was his stuff, so him wearing it, that was his idea to make money off of.
The Doctor of Thugonomics, is that also from a rap, or is that something you guys wanted to try to brand?
Same. Just kind of stuff that he would come up with when he was out in the ring that caught on.
Is there a wink and a nod in creative when somebody comes up with the 5-knuckle shuffle? Because that's obviously the name of a move that John Cena does, but it's also the name of a move that Tony Schiavone does.
Yeah, that was definitely a shout out to Tony Schiavone.
You recognize that I'm making a joke there.
Yeah, I know. So was I. Mine was funnier.
Well, it's debatable. So I guess
So is Tony Schiavone.
my question is, would you guys give another move to, I don't know, Kane? And let's say that Kane gets in the ring and the commentator yells, "Hey, it's time for the beat off. Hey, it's time for the whack job. Hey, look at him, give him that hand job." I mean, the 5-knuckle shuffle is innuendo for, what Tony Schiavone does anytime Medusa's on TV.
Well, you also have to understand that some of the people that were writing and or listening to some of this stuff were not really that hip on things.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Entendres and different things. It's no different than The Godfather when he would talk about, roll that blunt and light that blunt up, and they thought that a blunt was a cigar.
Here's what I'm wanting you to do, and I feel like you're making me fucking beg for it. Will you tell me the story of how Brian Gerwitz pitched Vince McMahon on the 5-knuckle shuffle and everybody looking at each other like the old man doesn't know we're talking about beating off? And you just won't give it to me.
Well, no, because I think it was simply Cena saying it and naming it, and they got to it, and he's like, you gotta love that 5-knuckle shuffle. God, if only I could do the 5-knuckle shuffle more often. Not really real. You know what I mean? Not putting 2 and 2 together.
Thank you. God, that was hard, man. That's what I've been digging.
I gotta make it work for it sometimes.
It's not fun. Not after 3 hours. You Can't See Me, has come out that was really just him ribbing on a brother who was kind of a professional moper. And he added the phrase, "You can't see me." But the hand gesture thing was kind of borrowed from an Inside Family joke. And then "You can't see me." Do you remember when that became a thing? Was anybody for it? Was anybody against it? Or is it just one of those silly things that caught on?
It's a silly thing that caught on. And when you talk about the brother and the "you can't see me" and the hand gesture, in the old family films that we had of the family growing up, that's something that John did with his brothers. And he would do that thing in front of his face to his brother. That was in some of those home movies. So he incorporated it and incorporated the "you can't see me," and it was boring.
Who names the FU and the STFU? The STF, by the way, and then adding the U to the end is genius.
I think it was Paul Heyman.
That's great. Well, anything else we can touch on as we kind of wrap up the rise of John Cena? We promised we would cut it off at WrestleMania 20, but we did briefly touch on the belts. By the way, that spinning belt was made by Joe Marshall. J-Mar is the name in the belt community. As far as I know, there haven't been many of those made, and almost none out in the wild. But if you have a picture of a ring-used spinner, hey, tweet it to me. I'd love to see it, because those are a moment in time that we probably won't see anytime soon. Hey, it's Conrad. He is at Bruce Pritchard. Our show, of course, is at Pritchard Show, and our show today was brought to you by Carvana. If you're looking to unsuck the experience of going to the dealership, then Carvana can help, man. With Carvana, you can browse, buy, trade in, even finance your next vehicle online, all from the comfort of your home. Choose as soon as next day delivery. You hear me? Next day delivery, or pick up your vehicle from the world's first coin-operated car vending machine and wave bye-bye to buyer's remorse with their 7-day money-back guarantee. What are you waiting for? Go to Carvana.com/wrestle. That's Carvana.com/wrestle for the new way to buy a car. It's Carvana.com/wrestle. Anything else you want to touch on about the rise of John Cena that we may have missed? We're going to take a couple of Twitter questions, but before we do so, any other notes from you, Bruce?
I think we've covered it, man.
Well,
let's get to the question.
Let's get to it. We asked you online to hit us with some questions. There's only one place to participate in the show, and that's on Twitter at Pritchard Show. You can ask us questions right there, and we will get to them. All right, first up, Steve Bradley and Kevin Kelly seem to imply they came up with the rapping white guy gimmick. Any truth to that?
For John Cena?
Yep.
Absolutely not.
Was there a single moment that made Vince say, "This is the guy"?
Wow. I think you can go back to the first time that Cena picked up Big Show for the FU and delivered it without a hitch, where he was like, God damn.
Really the one that took Jacob out? Can't believe it.
Cena seems like he was a legend in the bar, but we don't hear any stories. Other than Briscoe's birthday, do you have any other Cena drinking stories?
Well, the one that's closest to my heart was when we did the world premiere red carpet for The Marine, the first movie that John was in. It was Camp Pendleton outside of San Diego. And at the end of the night, everybody else had gotten red eyes out. John was staying over at the hotel, and we got back to the hotel. I was one of the last ones to arrive. And everybody was in the bar from the office that were a part of this red carpet deal, and John Cena, and drinking heavily. Now, I don't do shots. I'll either drink my Tito's and soda with lemon and lime, I'll drink some red wine, or I'll have a beer. I don't do shots. So I was drinking, and Cena ordered shots, demanded everybody do shots. And so I did the old Ric Flair, and I dumped my shot in a plant underneath the bar. And I got caught. John was highly offended that I would dump one of his shots. It was actually a Dirty Sanchez that had tequila in it. I especially don't do well on tequila either.
But you're a big fan of the Dirty Sanchez?
You know. So, John got double shots, and watched me as I shot the doubles. And then we did more shots, and then we did more shots, and then we did more shots. And it is the one time in my entire career that I ever overslept and missed a flight. 44 years. One time that I missed a flight because I didn't wake up. I don't remember going to bed. All I remember was waking up, still in my suit with my tie still tied, with my shoes on, underneath the covers, and like tucked in underneath the covers. My briefcase that I do remember, I never got back to my room to put my briefcase up because I went right to the bar. My briefcase was in my room with a cell phone on top of it. When I got up and I look around and I look at the clock, we're in San Diego and it's 2:30 in the afternoon. My flight was at 6:30 in the morning. And I'm like, what the hell happened? My head is screaming. And I look over and everything is nice and neat in my room. And I go, oh God, thank God they got my phone. It wasn't my phone. It was somebody else's phone. Someone else had lost their phone that night. He thought it was my phone, put it on my briefcase, when my phone was actually apparently in my briefcase that I didn't find for 2 days. And finally got home and called John. I said, you know what? You got me. You're the only person that has ever made me black out and miss a flight in all these years in the wrestling business. John Cena can hang. Can hang.
Is that the same time you pulled a gun on the Riders?
No.
Because you blacked out when we were taping that episode too. Hey, hypothetically, how would
not from drinking.
How would Jim Cornette rap John Cena's original theme?
And I didn't miss any flights either that time either. That was specific to that. I'm sorry, Jim Cornette. Go ahead.
That's it. I asked the question. Now you answer.
I didn't hear it. Sorry.
Well, because you were talking, you fucking dickhead.
Well, I said I'm sorry. Damn it.
Okay, you're forgiven. So we got a great idea on Twitter. What would it sound like if Jim Cornette rapped John Cena's original theme song, Basic Thugonomics?
So you think you're untouchable? Word live. This is basic thugonomics. Word live. I'm untouchable, but I'm forcing you to feel me. Whether fighting or spitting, my discipline is unforgiving. Got you backing up in a defensive position. An ass-licking anthem, heavyweight or phantom. Holding cabs and ransom. The microphone phantom. Jeans hit the floor, this new the fight joint. Like a broken needle, kid, you're missing the point. We dominate your conference with offense, that's no offense. My theme song here, let's get your reinforcements. We strike red with hard kicks, ducking knife sticks. Bare knuckle men through fight pits, beat you lifeless. Never survived this, you forgot like Alzheimer's. Never survived this, you forgot like Alzheimer's. Two-faced rappers walk away with four shiners. The raw rhymer turning legends to old-timers. My incisors are like a viper biting through your one-liners. New Dead Man Inc., and we ain't about to make you famous. Taking over the earth, still kicking in your anus.
Wow.
Motherfucker!
We won't be able to beat that. Let's get to next week's poll. I can't believe this is a real thing and that you did that. But kudos to you. If you haven't already, follow us on the show, man. We would love to have you go ahead and interact with us, vote on our poll, and then go ahead and send us some Twitter questions for whatever wins. He's on Twitter at Bruce Pritchard. I'm on Twitter at Hey It's Conrad. And the only way to follow the show is at Pritchard Show. And don't forget, if you haven't already, cruise on over to our Facebook page. There's lots of silly videos there, and you can keep up with all things about us coming to your town. Specifically, I'm talking to you, Dallas, Philadelphia, Dublin, Manchester, London. Hit it up. It's facebook.com/something to wrestle. Bruce, are you ready for next week's poll?
I am ready for next week's poll.
All right, well, let's get it. Poll option number 1, Vengeance 2005. We had Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle, Kane and Edge, a three-way with Cena, Christian, and Jericho, and then in our main event, Batista and Triple H and a Hell in a Cell. What might we talk about if Vengeance 05 wins the poll?
Well, this is the match with Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle, where Shawn famously came back afterwards and never wanting to work with Kurt Angle again because he was so damn stiff. We'll talk about leading up to that match, the aftermath of that match, as well as all the great matches on this card with Batista and Triple H in a solid steel Hell in a Cell match, by God. And also, you got Carlito and Shelton Benjamin in here for the Intercontinental Championship. What was supposed to happen, what did happen, and why those decisions were made on that match. But it was a great card, and actually kind of pull up for this one.
Poll option number 2, Doink the Clown, which I think is one of the more underrated topics. He's been on the poll before. We will cover the whole life and times of Matt Bourne if this wins. But Doink the Clown is one of the more underrated characters, and I know lots of people think that this represents a bad time in wrestling or they didn't like the character or whatever. But it is a fascinating character, and it's got lots of good stories in it. What might we talk about if Doink the Clown wins?
Who came up with the idea for Matt Bourne to be an
Ladies and gentlemen, children.
We haven't really talked to promote this action figure originally, and I had no influence in your pick here. You on your own picked a winner, and I'd like for you to announce who the winner is, what the picture was, and why you picked it.
Well, I'll reach deep down into the barrel here, and what do you know? Old Blue won the pony. No, that's a long, old wrestling story. I'll tell you later. Well, what do you know? Kane Pritchard won the... No, he's actually texting me right now saying he doesn't want it. Okay, folks, I'm done bullshitting here. The real winner.
You know what? Those type of jokes right there, those are the type of jokes that make clowns cry.
Thank you for that. The Dixie winner, the winner of the Dixie Carter action figure is Jason Washam at Washipoo187 on Twitter. And the place...
Congratulations, Washipoo187 on Twitter. Did you pick it because of the name? Or is this a funny picture?
No, I picked it because of the picture.
What is it?
It was the backside of a cow in a field.
Okay.
And the cow was urinating. And being a softie as I am, I want the figure to go to a good home where it will be comfortable. And it kind of looked like the ranch where Dixie grew up there in Texas outside of Dallas, and I figured that figure would be at home being out in the pasture with the cows. So I was being sympathetic. I wanted it to be at home. I wanted it to have a good home and feel comfortable.
Well, so there you go. Congratulations, WashyPoo187.
Yeah.
On your brand new Dixie Carter action figure. If you will go ahead and message the show account at Pritchard Show, we'll be on the lookout for your home shipping address, and Mr. Bauer will get that to you directly. All right, Bruce, let's get into it, man. This is going to be a pretty hot topic, pretty controversial name here. Sonny. What happened when Sonny went to the WWF? And I did some research using, of course, the Wrestling Observer newsletter, but mostly her book this time. And I feel like we should give everybody kind of a quick shout out for her book. I know she is not able to plug the book right now, but she does have one available. And I did a lot of research using that. It's on Amazon. It's called A Star Shattered, The Rise and Fall of Wrestling's Diva. And it's by Tammy Sitch. And it is available on your Kindle for only $9.99 on Amazon.com. So if you need a resource companion for this, there you go. Have you read the book, Bruce?
I have not. I lived it.
You lived it?
I lived a lot of it, yeah.
Well, let's get into it. December 4th, 1994, you call her home, and she thinks the call is for Chris, who she lives with, Mr. Chris Candido. But it's actually for her, and you're asking for an audition. Do you remember this call?
I do remember. She was working down for Jim Cornette at old Smokin' Mountain Wrestling.
Oh, my gosh.
And my brother Tom was also working in the area, and I had seen Tammy. She worked as Tammy Fitch.
That's right.
Down there. Beautiful young lady. Good God. And showed the tape. Cornette had sung her praises and showed the tape to Vince, and we thought about bringing her in and doing something with her. Actually thought about using her as a broadcaster.
Yeah, so she writes in her book that she actually comes to Titan on December 7th, which is her 21st birthday, and you guys do the whole limo and Marriott treatment. And she didn't think she did very well in the audition. She actually writes that she bombs, and she blamed her inexperience with a teleprompter for some of that. But she says she still got a call a week or so later that she got the gig. She didn't think she did well, but you guys still hired her. Was it just her innate charisma, the recommendation of Jim Cornette, or she's just damn good looking?
Well, without a doubt, you can't deny her charisma.
Right.
And she had a presence, and she wasn't hard to look at all. So it's a combination of all of those things, because she's 21 years old. She's speaking to our audience.
Right.
And when you've got a big audience of teenage, adolescent males,
Right.
they are going to sit there and they're going to listen to her, because they may not listen to what she says, but they're going to watch her for a while.
There you go. So in the meantime, between when she gets the call that she got the gig and the audition, she actually broke her arm working in Smoky Mountain, where she just took a bump the wrong way. So when you call her to give her the good news that she's hired, you advise her to buy some business suits and bring the receipt. Was that commonplace at the time?
Sure, yeah.
So the process is pretty simple. You just go get whatever you think is going to look good and bring the receipt. And who would that go through?
The receipt?
Yeah, like when she gets there, she's
Probably
handing you the
at
receipt.
that point, she'd probably either bring it to me or Kevin Dunn or something.
You guys just get her a check from accounting and you're done.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
easy enough. So she says right here in the phone call to you that, hey, she broke her arm and she's wearing a big ugly cast, and you say, we'll try to work around it. Or at least that's what.
It's television, kid.
There
We
you
make anything work.
So she becomes Tamara Murphy, and she credits this as Vince wanting to use her real first name, but an Irish-sounding last name. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Oh, God damn. We'll have this conversation when we talk about Michael Hayes too. You know where the name Murphy came from?
No.
There's an old television show, Murphy Brown.
Yeah.
And she was a newswoman.
Yeah.
So we took Tammy's first
Got
name,
it.
and then we took Murphy from Murphy Brown.
So she's going to host live event news, and this taping will be happening every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. She writes the WWF was going to pay her $500 per day for this, and she was still eligible to do Smoky Mountain Wrestling house shows every weekend. So she's very active and busy here. She says that Vince personally coached her up during some of the filming. Specifically, he didn't like the way she says garden when she was talking about Madison Square Garden. Is it common for Vince to be this hands-on with the talent as far as just producing the television? And would he zero in on a word like that or a pronunciation?
Without a doubt, especially a new young talent that he feels has potential, he will work with them ad nauseum, and if there's something that he feels like, we talked about before, the King's English, pal, and if they weren't pronouncing something to his satisfaction, yes, he would work with them. We sent Tony Schiavone to enunciation school to help him lose his southern drawl in the way that
Enunciation school.
Yes.
Wow, that's not something you just find in the Yellow Pages, I don't think.
In Stamford, Connecticut, I think you do.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I have no idea, but I know that he did it. He did go and work on his speech and work on reducing his southern drawl. I see you've done that too.
Reducing my southern drawl?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think.
You're doing a hell of a job.
Oh my gosh. Piss off. So in the Observer, it's written around this time that Candido and Fitch were being considered to recreate a Blonde Bombers style tag team with Candido and another wrestler managed by Fitch, almost a modern day incarnation of Ray Stevens and the Pat Patterson gimmick. Do you recall that being any sort of consideration, or was the thought always, no, we just want her?
No, well, actually, let me rephrase that. We wanted her,
Right.
and there was interest in Chris.
Okay.
And there was no interest in the beginning of the two of them as a package. And that became apparent. They wanted to do something like that. They wanted to be a package. And
So for Meltzer to write that, it would have been stuff he got from their side more so than your side.
who the hell knows where he got
Oh my
his
gosh.
bullshit?
God,
Or he does what he does with everything else and
That's
just
not-
sat there and make it up.
What?
But, probably sat there and said, well, I hear they're going to
Okay,
do this. So
okay,
he
okay.
sits there and makes up a narrative in his own mind.
All right.
But they were coming in. There was interest in Tammy, and we wanted to do something with Tammy as a broadcaster and be able to utilize her because she was young, she was fresh, she was different. And with Chris, wanted to bring Chris in as a character and use him in some way as well. When they all got together, is what often happens, kind of like Mark Marrow and Sable. The two of them are there together. They are a couple in real life, and
It
the
just
idea
happens.
just happens. Yeah.
So there was speculation that Tammy was going to come in as an announcer because the WWF was advertising in the broadcast trade journals for new talent. Was that common back then, that you guys would run, now hiring type of ads in those type of trade journals for broadcasters?
Oh, all the time.
They wound up bringing in, am I saying this right, Stephanie Wyan?
Stephanie Wyand, yes.
And from what I understand, she was a former Los Angeles radio DJ. She was actually hired from those ads. And then she began hosting WWF Mania, and she replaced Charlie
Min.
Yeah, former sportscaster from Columbus, Ohio. I don't know when we'll talk about Stephanie Wyan
Never again.
and Charlie Min again. Can you kind of share some insider stories on either one of those names?
Wow, everybody thought we were crazy. But we did. We advertised in the trades. We had rounds of auditions. Charlie Min was I believe he was Chinese American, but he had an over-the-top delivery. He was very entertaining, and he killed us in the audition. And Vince fell in love with him, and how Vince and I would do a lot of times is we would write down our thoughts, and then we would switch.
Right.
We'd share, after the fact. And both of us liked Charlie Min. I think we were the only two that liked Charlie Min. He was just different. But he was really exciting, and he talked like this, and it was just, he was different.
Right.
He was so different for our product and everybody else that was the traditional, Mean Gene type, an announcer type, and in your face. He was young and different. Stephanie
made it back.
Wyan
Good work
was
getting these. I respect folks who can handle
a young
themselves in nature.
female that
This
had a
will
lot
serve
of
you well.
energy,
Someday,
but
man's
she
creations will all
was
disappear,
lost.
but
She
Mother
just was
Nature will
lost once she
remain.
got there. She
She's a great
didn't
teacher.
grasp it.
Listen to
She
her.
tried really hard,
Learn from her.
but it wasn't in her.
And you
Charlie
will
was a fan.
persevere.
Stephanie really wasn't a fan, and she was just doing her job and trying to play a role.
So Meltzer starts
You don't wanna fuck with
speculating
me.
in The Observer that she's going to start, she being Tammy Sitch, is going to start as an obnoxious announcer and then segue into being a heel manager later. Of course, that's everybody's natural inclination based on her work at Smoky Mountain. By the end of the year, everybody's thinking that Candido's just going to finish up in Smoky Mountain and then sign with the WWF. And it's worth mentioning, he was the NWA champion at the time. Now, obviously, this is, when the NWA is not quite where the NWA was a decade before. But he's still doing indies and doing pretty well there. She does share in her book details about when she's first brought into the office to discuss their characters with her and Skip, because this Tamara Murphy live event news thing is short-lived. Can we agree?
Yeah, it was. She just wasn't. Tammy is a natural heel. She has a natural charisma, but she's a natural heel too. She's a smart ass, and she came across as a bitch.
Right.
She didn't intend to.
Yeah. Jim Cornette has famously said, or he described her, and she described herself as a, quote, out front cunt.
Yeah.
Just can't help it. Just a little rude, it is what it is. It's just her natural disposition.
Exactly, and you can't mask that.
Right.
So it was one of those situations where try as we may, her natural dislikability was going to come out.
So soon thereafter, you guys decide to let's look at maybe putting them together, and she suggests they were supposed to be baby faces, which I find amazing considering that you think it was just obvious from the start that she was supposed to be a heel, or destined to be a heel. She describes the gimmick as being a cross between cheerleaders and superheroes, and the gimmick was supposed to be called Team Spirit. And you can actually find this in your Google machine. She had a cheerleading skirt, a cape, a tank top, and gloves to her elbows, and Chris had a singlet and a cape. They debut at a TV taping in North Carolina. And this happens only about 90 miles from where they finished up with Smoky Mountain. Do you remember the angle they used to get them out of Smoky Mountain?
I have no idea.
They killed a cat on Christmas.
Bastards.
That's real.
Bastards.
Wrestling in 1994, man. So anyway, of course, they're booed to death because they're 90 miles from where they killed the cat. So a lot of these folks are watching Smoky Mountain television and are familiar with this. So afterwards, Vince suggests, hey, you know what? Maybe you're better as heels. And he suggested that they kind of pivot to become fitness gurus, full of hype and energy, kind of like Tony Little was on the old infomercials. And the name Body Donna was a combination of body and prima donna. In her book, she credits Vince with that name and their individual names, Skip and Sonny. She says she had a hand in changing the costumes to be more of a sports bra-like tank top and bike shorts, and eventually she would transition to a more revealing sports bra and tennis skirt. After they do this, kind of pivot here, they tape 4 weeks worth of promos to introduce the characters to the audience.
like they used to.
I'm lucky. I don't need much to survive out there on my own. Mister?
Hey, find your own spot. Just kidding.
You don't really appreciate freedom until you've seen what it's like to live without it.
Everything they touch dies. You got me confused with somebody else.
first.